Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, co-editor-in-chief of Retail Insider, taking care of retail business today with Dan Kelly, who is president and CEO of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. Thanks, Dan, for joining us today.
Good to be with you, Mario.
All right, so it's Small Business Month, October, Small Business Month. Tell us in a nutshell, from your perspective, how would you describe the state of small business in Canada right now?
Well, look, there are glimmers of hope certainly, and we're seeing some signs of that in our data. Businesses that are looking forward positively. Some of the damage that was created over the last number of years has either taken its toll, or businesses have been able to move on from that successfully. But I wouldn't say that it's an overall good picture by any means. Every time we think we're just coming out with a smooth path ahead, some other curveball comes at us. Businesses are used to curveballs being thrown their way, but my goodness, there have been a ton of them over the last little while. So, small business confidence isn't as high as we would like it to be. It remains fairly muted.
Yeah.
With lower interest rates coming ahead, we suspect that may improve, perhaps over the months.
Yeah. What would you say that, I don't know, top three issues are that small business community faces right now?
Well, yeah, look, a lot of this would be addressed by rising consumer demand, and that has not yet been on a smooth path. We've seen, upticks and downticks over the last little while, but the lack of consumer demand, both domestically and internationally, has been a challenge for businesses in tons of different sectors of the economy. The other is certainly this is affecting retailers. There have been all these supply chain challenges and shocks with all sorts of spontaneous strikes, job actions, both in Canada and most recently a short one in the US. And not a lot of confidence that we've got a good system in place to try to address that for the long term. And then, of course, there's a host of cost-related problems that businesses are facing. At the same time that demand is lower for their products, costs are anything but lower for most business inputs, including the cost of taxation. So businesses are struggling with many of those factors. Now, there are a couple of positives coming on the horizon. We just finally saw the signs of a big reduction in, a big rebate of carbon-based taxes that small firms will benefit from. Those checks should be out by the end of the year. That will put a $2.5 billion boost into the small business economy, and not a small one.
Yeah.
Secondly, we see credit card processing fees starting to tick down in the weeks ahead. That is going to be good news for very small merchants. But for those that are a little bit larger, those that perhaps have sales above $500,000, they are a little bit beyond the scope of those changes.
Would you like the top priority of the federal government? What should it be right now in helping small business? How can they do that?
Well, look, I think if they can continue on this pathway of looking at some of the key cost drivers and reducing the costs of them, that would be certainly helpful. We've seen employment insurance premiums and Canada pension plan premiums go up. We need to put the brakes on that. And in fact, if we can see EI premiums start to drop very soon, that would be welcome news. The cost of taxation needs to come down. And so, for example, we are right now advocating that the carbon tax not just needs the dollars that have been collected don't not just need to be rebated, but the whole system needs to be rethought. In fact, most small firms now, 83% of them, advocate for the end of the federal carbon tax system. So getting rid of or lowering some of the key tax rates in Canada would accomplish a couple of things. It might help consumer demand for the taxes that face us as consumers by arming them with a few more dollars, and help businesses deal with their cost profile, which sadly has been sky high.
Hmm. What about labor situation for small businesses? What's it like these days? And I know, I know in the news recently we had a famous Canadian brand got in a little trouble, from a public relations point of view, but with the use of temporary foreign workers and with the fact that a lot of people, who are not temporary but living here, are unemployed. you know, where are we at with the labor's situation in the country?
Well, we have started to see the shortage of labor start to come down a bit. Certainly, coming out of the pandemic, virtually every employer I spoke to said their top issue was the shortage of workers available for their business, not just at the skilled level, but also at the entry level. Businesses were just not finding people. The labor market was broken as we came out of the pandemic, as people had been laid off, rehired, laid off, rehired. Now we're back to a system where we're getting a little bit more normalcy in the labor market. And there still are many sectors of the economy that are short of workers, especially some of those at the entry level. But we have started to see a little bit of an ease in that. Unemployment rates have ticked up a tiny bit. That means there are more people available for jobs. But I can tell you, if any read of the demographics that we're facing as a country says that we are going to be short of workers for a big swath of Canada's workforce in the months and years ahead, and
Hmm.
we can't just reverse gears. Yes, some students this summer said that they struggled to find a summer job. I got to tell you, I'm not sure those students looked super hard, or they just confined their search to online engines and not actually not actually going out and doing a bit of door knocking in businesses to see if they're hiring. Many, not most of them were. So the labor market has been through a few challenges of its own. I worry, though, that we're making holus bolus changes on the student work program for international students, also on the temporary foreign worker program, and not thinking beyond short-term interests. Yes, we need to make sure that we're not, flooding the market with too many workers if there isn't enough employment. But if we turn this dial down too hard, we're going to see some pretty significant problems with the shortage of labor very, very soon.
I just want to return a little bit, to your comments about demand. What needs to happen in Canada to get that demand back to where it used to be?
Well, look, I think Canadians need a little bit more confidence in our economic system in Canada, and that's been shaken. It was certainly shaken over the course of the pandemic. Governments have been borrowing huge sums of money without pathways back to balanced budgets. That causes some concern. And taxes have been going up. New taxes like the carbon tax introduced over the last number of years. We need to make sure that Canadians can keep a larger chunk of their own paycheck. We need to ensure that Canadian employers have the ability to hang on to more of their own after-tax income so that they can reinvest in their businesses.
Yeah.
And if we do those things and do them quickly, we can get back, I think, a bit more confidence in the economy, and people will start to spend again. Now, one of the things that we need, of course, is starting to happen, and that is to see interest rates go down as more and more Canadians' disposable income is shifted to the cost of housing, either through rent or through their mortgage payments. That saps dollars that might otherwise be spent in retail, in hospitality, and travel and tourism. If we can keep those interest rates coming down steadily, that should send a little bit more confidence into the economy, and that would be a welcome thing.
Okay. When you look at the landscape of businesses out there, I think recently StatsCan had some numbers showing the number of business closures was quite large, and it was one of the biggest months of closures in a while. Um, are you still surprised that people still want to open a small business in this environment?
It's funny. We did some recent data collection from our members as to whether existing business owners would recommend starting a business at this time, and it was pretty sobering. Only a quarter of small businesses said that they would recommend others start a business at this point in time. But on the positive side, there are, as you noted, there are loads of Canadians that are serious about taking the plunge and starting a business of their own. And that's a good thing. It shows that the Canadian entrepreneurial dream hasn't drifted away in any huge numbers just yet. But we can't take that for granted. And we've got to make sure that we can get back to some more normal times. Businesses fail all the time, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But we have seen many good, stable businesses close their doors because of some of the damage that they took on during the course of the pandemic. That should be washing its way out of the economy in the next year or two. But we're not making it easy for somebody to start a business. We don't want to take away the risk, of course, that's absolutely there, but we should make sure that governments don't make it harder. In fact, they should be making it easier by doing some of the things like reducing key tax rates, keeping the regulatory burden fair, and ensuring that the labor market supplies the people that we need to put our products and services to market.
Well, thanks so much, Dan, for joining us today.
Anytime, Mario.
All right, that was Dan Kelly, President and CEO of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. I'm Mario Toneguzzi, co-editor-in-chief of Retail Insider. Thanks for joining us today.